I can't hear you. You're muted. Okay, it is 2:05. That was a slow start to our afternoon. And I told you that this week we're doing a little sort of a mini unit. It's actually a unit that the district has required for us to teach. So Beaverton has decided this is a really important unit to do. It's kind of a social studies unit. And it's a unit on rights and responsibilities. So when I say rights to you, what does that mean to you? Like, what would be an example of a right? Put it in the chat if you can think of a right.
A direction.
It might sound like a direction, and you could put that in.
That's not what it means now.
Okay, so what do you think it means? If I say, what are your rights? What is a right that you have as a student?
Freedom.
Okay, I see Sasha.
Right to say anything.
Freedom of speech, is that what you're talking about?
Speech, freedom of religion.
Yes, those are protected by the Constitution, aren't they? Who else has, I see that Sasha put in civil rights. So what's an example of a civil right? Put it in the chat. What do you think your rights are? What do you think your rights are? What's a right when we talk about rights? I mean, that word has a lot of meanings because we talk about right and wrong, left and right. But in this case, when I say your rights, what am I talking about? Being able to do something, freedom. A right is to vote. Yes. Not to work. Well, or to work.
I want rights to vote.
Well, for children now, they're protected and they are not to work. That's true.
Hey, look, I have a little mic here. Look.
All right. My friends, I want you to think about this. So we have rights, and then we have responsibilities and rules, and we have those on all sorts of levels. So if I were to ask you, how should we live well together? What would it take in order for people? Do you think that people live well together now? And what would it take for us to live well together? What sorts of things would we have to have in our schools, in our cities to live well together? Put it in the chat for right now, if you can. And then I'll take some ideas in a minute. I like there to be some quiet time for people to think a little bit before we share out. Okay, we need to have love for one another. Nice. Freedom. What would it take, Liam? I want you to set your pumpkin down and put your fingers on the keyboards and tell me, what would it take for us to live well together? Do you think people live well together now? At school, in the classroom, in the city, in our state, in our country, in the world? Do we live well together now? And what would it take for us to do that? Make all Black lives matter. I don't think we live well together right now. Sometimes we do. All lives matter. Nice. It's kind of a big question, isn't it? As we work together in a classroom and in a district and in our city, we have to think about these issues. And I think sometimes we start to think about them as somebody else's decision. But when we say that we live well together, who's the we? Are you part of the government?
No.
Families, what does it take? Well, for families to live together, you're definitely a part of your family. Are you part of our classroom? Are you a citizen of a city? You have rights in the city? Yeah.
No.
Are you part of the state? Did you know the state pays for you to go to school? That every person in Oregon is taxed to pay for you to go to school for free. And that some countries don't have free education. You know what they told me in Africa, in the town that I was in Africa? They said, we would like you to give us some money to help children to go to school, because when they can't go to school, we just have to beat them until their parents pay. I said, what? No, don't beat the students.
I have wait, can I say something about my school back at Samoa?
Sure.
This is a private school.
Yeah.
It's the name is Yakina, right? And My parents said that it costs only $60 like about every month.
Wow. Wow, that's not very much for a private school. So
Mhm.
right now I'm going to play a book for you that's sort of talking about some of these issues, talking about who we are and what our rights and responsibilities are in order to live well together, what rules or laws we need to follow, how we cooperate. And while you're watching this, I'd kind of like you to think about some kind of big questions. So these are the questions that they gave us to think about. Who or what is the grandfather encouraging his grandfather to feel obligated to? What does that word obligated mean? Does anybody know?
What the grandfather is encouraging his grandfather to feel obligated.
Does anybody know if you feel obligated, then that feels like you have to do something. If I'm obligated to take care of my children, or I'm obligated to come on to Zoom and teach you every day, that's sort of one of my responsibilities that I feel like I should do. So this grandfather is encouraging his granddaughter to feel obligated to do something for someone. I want you to pay attention to who he's encouraging her to feel obligated to. Why do you think the circle is uniquely suited to the grandfather's ideas versus like a square or a star or a triangle? What cultural symbols or practices are you familiar with that use circles? How do these connect to the grandfather's message? And if you have time, sketch proposals for a class symbol using a circle in the space below. Well, of course, you don't have this piece of paper, but while you're watching the video, I'd like you to think about that. And if you want to sketch a symbol you think would be cool for our class, go for it. So I'm going to play this video. I want you to think about the message the grandfather is telling his granddaughter. All right. And this is a book called, I think it's called Circles All Around Me, and it's being read by the author, which is kind of cool.
Hi, my name is Selena Gonzalez, and I'm going to share with you today my favorite picture book. It's called All Around Us, and the reason it's my favorite is that I wrote it, and my dear friend Adriana M. Garcia illustrated it. She took pictures of my daughter and my father. They're the little girl and the grandfather depicted here. And so all of the scenes you're going to see are from San Antonio, because we are from the west side of San Antonio. So here it is, All Around Us, written by Selena Gonzalez, illustrated by Adriana M. Garcia. Grandpa says, circles are all around us. We just have to look for them. He points to the rainbow that rises high in the sky after a thundercloud has come. He traces the colorful arc with his hand and says, "Can you see? That's only half the circle. The rest of it is down below in the earth where water and light feed new life. That's the part we cannot see. But in my mind, I try." Can you picture it? Okay, open your eyes. We're in the garden now. Grandpa and I work side by side in the garden, planting flowers and pulling vegetables. We eat what we've grown. Crunchy lettuce, sweet carrots, and spicy chiles. Grandpa saves the stems, leaves, and seeds to bury back in the ground. "Here is another circle," he says. "What we take from the earth, we return." He draws a big circle on his belly and a little circle on mine and says, "We even have circles inside." This makes me laugh. Grandpa and I take a walk around our neighborhood where we find other circles. Let's see if you can spot them. We see the sun, the clock. There's a clock way over there. The bicycle wheels, and there's many more hidden here on these pages. We stare at the green and brown rings in each other's eyes for a long time, and then we laugh again. He's right. Circles are everywhere. I'll show you one more important circle before the big round moon comes out, says Grandpa. We walk way back in our yard and sit under a tall pecan tree. Grandpa seems sad when he sits here because this is where we bury the ashes of our ancestors. I don't remember them, but he does. Even our bodies return to the earth, Grandpa says, and pats the ground with his big hands. But that's only half the circle. That's the part we cannot see. Finally, we walk to our front yard to water our smallest tree. Grandpa planted it for me on the day I was born, and everything that fed me while I grew in my mother's belly is buried at the roots. I love bringing water to the apple tree that is already taller than I am. Grandpa pats my head and says, "Do you see, my grandchild? We have new life with you." I am part of the circle too, the part we can see, just like a rainbow. Dun, dun, the end. If you like this story, I would love to hear from you, and there's also a video on YouTube where you can help to retell the story using your body in an exercise called Tai Chi or Qigong. So thank you for joining me today.
Okay. Okay, and stop my share. So what did you think? Who do you think that the grandfather was telling the granddaughter to feel obligated to, or what? Anybody notice that in the story?
Her ancestors?
Kind of, I think so, Kainoa. I would agree with you. Do you guys agree with that? The people who have lived before, how many of you have your parents ever talked to you about your ancestors who lived before your time? Their parents or their grandparents? Have your parents ever talked to you about those people who've already passed on? Yeah. And remembering them and thinking about them is kind of part of today. And what other circles did they talk about in that story? Do you feel like we're in circles of obligation? Do you feel obligated to me to let me know what's going on in your life? Yeah, Nora?
I feel like he's talking about circles of life.
Kind of, yeah, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely some parts of that. How many circles do you think you're a part of? Part of your family or part of your classroom? Probably, maybe some of you are part of an apartment building where you have relationships. Got a bigger family, probably cousins and things. How many of you have cousins that you know?
I'm part of a circle.
Are you what circle? Oh, right there. You are a circle. Your arms. Yeah. As we move through this year, we have stepped into each other's circles, haven't we? That's why I really love the first day of school, because all of a sudden I'm going to meet all of you. And the truth is, all of your lives make my life better. They make it bigger and richer because I get to learn about you and the things you know and the places you go and the things you see. And in this next week, it's super exciting because not only do I get to learn new things, but I get to learn all the new things that you learn. And I get to see your excitement learning new things, which is really cool. So as you are part of our class this year, at this point, what we were going to talk about is how do we get along well together as a class? How do we make up rules and agreements so that we as a class are kind and encouraging to each other? I've already seen friendships forming. The truth is, many of you are stuck in situations where it's hard to meet people, right? And that these little boxes that we're staring at each other are kind of our community. Are you putting us in a box, somebody? All of us little people, our little tiny friends in boxes. We're all little tiny friends in boxes. And we're part of each other's circle this year. So I want to thank you for when you reach out to me and let me know what's going on. And I want to invite you to let me know when things aren't working for you. If I send you a note and you don't think it's fair, or you need me to know things are going on, please reach out and let me know. I don't think when we're not in the same room, we don't have to have quite as many of the same rules as we do when we're at school, do we? Because we do have a little more space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't quite have to have as many rules. Like, we don't need to have rules like, oh my gosh, my cat just peed on something. He's being so bad. Gross, Rocco. Ew.
That's gross. Ew. I'm so glad Toby isn't like that.
Hey.
I'm glad Toby isn't like that. Or else I'd...
Such a bad boy. I'm locking him out of here. So bad lately. Yuck. He peed on my carpet too. Ah.
Ew.
Gross. I feel a circle of obligation to take care of my cat, but I'm kind of mad at him right now. All right, my friends. Well, we don't have too much more to talk about with that, because we were going to make a class constitution, but tomorrow we're going to talk about how those circles of obligation get bigger as we look at the fact that in a few years you'll be voting. And I don't know, but your parents are probably voting right now, because we just got our ballots in the mail. So it's time for voting right now. And then as you grow up, you're going to become drivers, and you're going to have to follow those rules, and voters. You're going to have to decide about whether you want to serve in the armed services or whether you want to run for office and become an elected official in politics, or whether you want to be a lawyer and help enforce the laws, or a judge. You're going to have a responsibility to maybe serve on a jury and help be one of the people who helps decide whether people are guilty or innocent. So there are a lot of circles that you're going to take part in. We're going to study some of the rights. There's actually some civil rights and some human rights that they've written documents about, and we're going to study some of those tomorrow and see what rules do we live our lives by, what exists, and what does it say. Never being a lawyer. My husband's a lawyer, Kainoa. It's a good job. He helps defend fish. Isn't that a funny thing to defend? He's a fish lawyer. He protects fish.
That's cool.
All right. We have got about 5 minutes before the book club at 2:30. So I will make really short breakout rooms for just about 5 minutes to go in and play if you want to. Amadi, did you want to say something?
How would the fish look your work?
How is the fish our work?
No. How would the fish know your work?
Well, he's an environmental attorney, so he studies the environmental laws. And if, for example, if the Bonneville Dam decides that they want to hold on to the water because they want to use it for power, but the fish, baby fish are going down the river and need water, then my husband will sue Bonneville Power Administration and say, you need to let the water go now because the fish need to be flushed down the river safely. Things like that.
I understand now.
Yeah. Maura, did you have a question?
So is he like just like only for fish or sea creatures, or is he like?
He actually does all endangered species. So he's done grizzly bears and fish and tiny little shrimp, all sorts of creatures. I'm going to open up just 3 breakout rooms right now. Gentlemen who are part of my book club. So this would be, let's see, that's the 3A group, right? Untitled. Amadi, Kainoa, Liam, Jax, and Lauren. Why don't you guys head to breakout room 1, please? And then everybody else, you can go into 2 and 3 for a few minutes and play around. Okay?
I'm only going to be there for 6 minutes.
Okay, that's all right. Join us for 6 minutes. Okay. Room 1, book club. I just saw Jax leave. He was here and he left as soon as I said book club. I don't think he wants to do book club. Oh, let me turn off